Hi, I'm Kelly from Jewellery. Today I'm going to show you how to make this cute heart pendant. I've used a heart stone, it's undrilled. You can use a teardrop if you want to. I've put a list in the description below of everything you'll need to make this, including all the usual links. We've got Facebook, Instagram and my Etsy shop where I sell all my written tutorials if anyone is interested in having a little nosy at those. To make this pendant you'll need 0.8mm wire, that's 20 gauge. I've cut 4 lengths at 11 inches, that's 25.5 centimetres. I'm using round wire. I'm also using silver wire. You can use copper, you can use square wire, you can use whatever you like. Any type of wire will work with this design. I'm using round silver wire. You'll need 0.3mm weaving wire, which is 28 gauge. Again, you can go up or down a step on these gauges. These are just what I use, what I prefer to use. I've wound mine onto a bobbin. If you don't have a bobbin, don't worry, you can just cut lengths as you go. I use one of these because it just helps with holding the wire. It tends to flail about a bit. So those are really useful. You'll need a heart-shaped stone. Now you can use a teardrop if you want to make this if you don't have a heart-shaped one. Mine's a flat back. So if yours is a puffy stone, you can still do it. It's just a little bit harder to grip with the wires. Mine's undrilled, so it's just a normal stone that's shaped into a heart. Mine is 18mm by 18. So if yours is bigger than mine, if yours is say 25, then you'll need to just add a couple of inches to the lengths of the base wires. I've also got a little bead. Mine's 4mm. You can use any size bead you like. Within that kind of size region, like a 3mm would be fantastic too. Jump ring, I've remembered my jump ring today, 10mm outside measurement. And again, you can use any size jump ring you like, as long as it's just big enough to get your cord or your chain through once it's in position and that the other wires don't obstruct that. Tools, I've got my pliers, round nose pliers, wire cutters and nylon pliers. If you don't have nylon pliers, don't worry. I like to keep these handy for flattening the weaves and straightening the wires. All my tools at the moment are Tronex. I find they really last. The other tools that I tend to buy seem to kill them pretty quickly. So these, though they are expensive, work out cheaper in the long run because you don't have to keep buying tools over and over. I've probably had these for a year or two now, and they have lasted, which is surprising for me because I am quite heavy-handed. So find the centre point of your wires. Take all 4 of your base wires, put your thumb in the centre, and we're going to start weaving just to the left of your thumb. So take your weaving wire and we'll start with 3 wraps around the bottom wire. Then go over your second wire, so we're going around the bottom 2 wires. Come up between those 2 wires and then go over the 3rd wire. Come up between those 2, so we've gone around the middle 2, over the top, so we've gone around the top 2, up between the bottom 2, and then we'll go around the middle 2, under the bottom, over the second wire, so we've gone around the bottom 2, and we'll keep repeating that. So I'm going around the middle 2, around the top 2, around the middle 2, and around the bottom 2. So I've done that twice. I'm going to do a couple of wraps just to get to the top. So I've gone around the middle 2, I'm going around the top 2. So now I'm going to wrap another twice around those top 2 wires And now we're working just across the top 2 wires. And we go 3 wraps around the bottom of those top 2. And then 3 wraps around the top 2 wires. And I'll mention now, so I don't forget, because I always do, please mention me, Kelly Jones Design, when you're sharing your work online made from my tutorials. And thanks to everybody who does, I really appreciate it. And I love seeing all the work that you make from my tutorials. So we're going to keep repeating that top one just a few more times. So I've done 8 repeats of that little 3-3 weave on the top there. So holding the top weave, we're going to bend it around into a loop. If you do it in little movements, you've got more control over the shape being how you want it to be. So I've got a little loop there. So now I need to take this weaving wire to the back. And we're going to carry on weaving across them all. But I just need to get from there to there. So I'm going to go underneath the wires here. So I'm just going to go around the bottom 2 and then around the bottom 1 just a couple of times to get the wire in place. And then we're going to go across all 4 wires. We'll do what we did before. So we go around the bottom 2. And then around the middle 2, around the top 2, around the middle 2, if your wires keep moving like mine, you have to just keep adjusting them and keep pushing them together as you go. And around the bottom 2. So if you look at what we did before, I've got a couple of repeats there, so you want to try and do what you did over here, so I'm going to repeat that again. So we did another repeat and I've finished with 3 wraps around that bottom wire. So keep pushing, squeezing your weave together to keep it all nice and tidy. And we're going to now cut both ends of that wire. We always give the wire a little pull first so it's tighter around the base wires. So cut both the wires and then just find the ends and press them down so you haven't got any sharp edges. So now take your pliers and grip everything right in the middle there. What we're going to do is we're going to bend the weave. And we're going to bend it into a V. So that V should then be the same angle as the bottom of your stone. And don't worry about that little loop, we'll correct that in just a moment. So move to a flat surface and position the wires around your stone. Make sure on the sides your wires, they don't cross over each other. You want them all to be nice and flat next to each other. And then carefully cross your wires over at the top there and bring your wires around the stone. And it is hard to get it central with a heart or a teardrop, to be honest. And then to keep the stone at the bottom because it does keep trying to jump up out of place. So hold your stone down and pull your wires around the stone until it's like, so you got that kind of shape. When you're happy with your shape, holding the stone down so it sits comfortably in the bottom V, and it may rise a little bit as we go. You just want to straighten the wires, grip them and give them a little wiggle so they all now sit next to each other at the top. So when you're happy with that shape, you're now going to do a little bit more weaving on this part. I think I'm just going to level this so that these stones sit straight, and then we'll bend it down in a moment. So take your weaving wire, and we're going to be just on the one side. So look at those wires, make sure they're not crossing over each other like mine are. So we want them all nice sat next to each other. I'm going to pull them apart a little bit to make it easier to weave. I'm going to weave across all four, just below the neck there where the wires join. So make sure they're not crossing over each other. Take your weaving wire, and we're going to wrap 3 times around the bottom wire. Are we just going to do the same weave that we just did on the bottom? So wrap 3 times around the bottom wire. Slide it down into place. Those 2 wires want to cross over. So then we're going to do what we just did. So we've got a wrap around the bottom 2. Come up between those 2. Go around the middle 2. Come up between those. Around the top 2. Come up between those. No. Come up between the bottom 2. Around the middle 2, around the bottom 2, and we come up between the bottom 2 again, and go around the middle 2, and we'll repeat that another couple of times. So I've got 3 repeats of that weave. I'm going to finish it with 3 wraps around the bottom wire. I'm going to slide it up a little bit. Well, I've slid it up a bit already, so that it finishes more towards the top there where they meet. And then I'll do those few wraps just to finish off the wire. So we need to do this on the other side as well. So we'll cut this weaving wire now at both ends, and we'll do the other side. So turn it over. Now look at your wires and make sure they're not crossing over each other. We need to match this one. Keep it all the same. The 3 wraps around this wire here are the same wire that's got the 3 wraps at the bottom. So we want to have the 3 wraps on that wire now, just to keep it all the same. You're likely not to see it, so don't worry if yours are different. I'm going to go 3 wraps around that top wire. I've got myself all knotted up now. 3 wraps around that top wire. Slide it down into place. Same weave as before, only now it's upside down. We come up between the middle two. And we'll go around the top two wires. Come up between the bottom two. Go around the middle two wires. Then around the bottom two wires. Come up between those two. And we're going around the middle two. Come up between those two. And around the top two. So, as for the other side, we'll repeat that 3 times. So I've got 3 repeats. I've slid it up towards the top just a little bit. Finished with 3 wraps around that top wire. And we're going to keep this wire still attached now. So we're going to keep weaving, so don't cut this wire, but cut the little one from the beginning. Quickly check your stone still fits and you haven't misshaped the wires. Take your stone back out and holding it all together, we're going to wrap around all of the wires and making sure that they're all nice and flat and they haven't crossed over each other. Go around the whole thing a few more times. What's that, about 5-6 times? And then, keeping it nice and taut, we're going to wrap around one of the back wires to hold those wraps in place, and we'll go around that one 3 times. So position your stone and try and get it to sit as central as you can. And then we're going to turn to the back. Don't worry about that weave, we'll deal with that when it's all in place. So we're just going to pull on this back wire a little bit just to make a gap. So we can get our pliers between the wires there. Push your stone down to the bottom part as far as you can. Take your pliers and we're going to grip this back wire at the bottom where the weave is. And we're going to pull it around over the back of the stone and bend it in. Holding the top back in place there at the top of the stone. I'm going to twist so it comes over the stone, and then I'm just pressing against the stone, making sure the stone is still pushed down. And we're going to do the same for the other side. So grip the bottom wire just where the weave is. Hold the top of the wire down. We're going to bend it over the back and twist. And then push it against the stone. And keep pushing down on your stone so it stays at the bottom there. So the wires at the top should still be quite wide and the wires come in nicely at the bottom. So now turn to the front, holding it all together and holding your stone in. We're going to grip this weave and we're going to bend it down so it sits like that. Your stone may pop out the front, so keep holding onto your stone. Make sure you've got a gap on the front wire now. So we've kind of had a little practice run doing the back first. And if you are a beginner, you may not get this right the first time. You know, it is frustrating, but it is nice when it does go right. So it's worth keeping at it and keep going, keep trying. So grab your wire towards the bottom. I'd say just a little bit higher than where the weave is. Hold the top in place at the top of the stone, the wire, and twist it in. And then it's up to you how far you twist it in. I might just twist mine a little bit further than that. Just want it to hold the stone at the front there. And then you've got to match up the other side. So grip the wire on the other side. I'm just a little bit higher than the weave. hold the top down with your thumb, hold it all firmly in place, and then twist that wire. So you're twisting it sort of over the front of the stone a bit, and you're putting a nice bend into the wire. Push it all against the stone so it's all nice and secure. When your stone is how you want it, so it's all nice at the bottom there, squeeze the top a little just to hold the wires in place. And make sure that weave as well. Hold it really firmly if you're going to mess with the weave. I'm going to turn that a little bit just so it's nice and flat. So that's what we've got so far. And that's the tricky bit done. As soon as you've got to this bit, it's so much easier now. That's the tricky part done. Have a little look to make sure it's all nice and tidy, and separate those side wires a little so it grips the stone better. Now you always like to squeeze the top in. So now we're going to move our focus to these top wires. You want 2 back wires going straight up. And then you've got 3 side wires on each side. I'm just going to separate them out so I can see them. But we're going to focus on these 2 back wires. So you want them just straight up together. So checking that you have got 3 wires on each side. I'm going to bend these down out of the way for now, just while we're working on those 2. So we've already got 3 wraps on the bottom wire. So now we're going to do 3 wraps over both wires. And then 3 wraps around that bottom wire again, and keep pushing it down as you go. And we'll keep repeating that weave. So please subscribe if you haven't already. My Facebook and Instagram links are below, and I would love to see all your finished work. If you tag me, I shall try and comment on all of the posts that have me tagged. And we'll keep repeating that weave. So I've done 12 repeats of that weave, and keep pushing your weave together as you go. Holding the piece firmly at the bottom there, I'm going to bend this weave out to the right. And now I'm going to bend that weave over to the left, but I'm going to bring it, I can feel that those middle wires keep shifting, but as I bring it around, I'm going to bring it over the front of those wires. So it's going from the back to the front there. So now I'm going to take the next wire. I'm going to bend it down a little bit at the base. I'm going to scoop that wire over to follow the weave. And if you go really slowly, you'll be able to see it taking shape, so you can adjust it as you go. And I want it to follow that weave. And you want it to finish so it sits this side of those 2 wires and it's ready to join onto that weave. When you've done that, I'm then going to take the next wire, pushing that down too, scoop that one around, and we want it to sit a little bit smaller, a little bit lower than the top one. And I'm going to pop my bead on that wire. And I'm going to bring that wire around so that it sits next to the other wires. This last wire, I'm going to scoop around the other way, and it's going to go to the back for now, and I shall finish that off in a bit. And then I'm going to take the very back wire from the other side, and I'm going to bend it this way, scoop it around so that it follows this wire around this way. It's a bit awkward to hold this close to the camera. So you've got two going round that way. So now we're going to weave across these 4 wires just to tidy it up so we can see what we're doing. If you're a beginner and you don't want to do all these bends, you can finish this off however you like. As long as you've got your top little weave to attach your jump ring to, you can do whatever you like to all these other wires. I do tend to overcomplicate at this point. So now we're going to work across all 4 wires. And I'm going to do a slightly different weave across these 4. So we've got 3 wraps around that bottom wire already. I'm going to go once around the bottom 2, once around 3. I'm going to come up between the bottom 2. I'm going to go once around the top 3. And then I'm going to go around the bottom 3. Then around the bottom 2. You can do any weave you like at all across these 4. It's just to hold it together. I'm going to have a nice pretty weave at the front. And then I'm going to do 3 wraps around that bottom wire. So I'll just quickly show you that again. 1 wrap, wrap around the bottom 2, wrap around 3, come up between the bottom 2, go over the top, so we've wrapped around the top 3, then go around the bottom 3, around the bottom 2, 3 wraps around the bottom wire. So I've got 5 repeats of that weave. I'm going to do these 2 wires next so we can get to it all still, because it might get a bit fiddly if we leave it till later. So we're going to take the bottom one and we're going to scoop it around. I want it to sit like that. And then take the next one and I'm going to scoop that one around, and I want that to sit above that one. So it comes around to, I'm just going to change the shape of that a little bit. And then where they come around, got my weaving wire tangled up there. We want these 2 wires that we've just bent to go behind the weave. So I'm pulling them in a little bit and then holding it all in place at the front. I'm going to bend those 2 wires straight around to the back quite firmly. we can finish those off so they're out the way, I think. So those 2 wires only, I'm going to cut them. and now I'm going to have to go and find them. I'm going to, I think I've bent it a little bit there. And I'm going to bend those 2 around, just to grip around those side wires there. So I've bent them over, holding it all in place. I did it off the camera because it's a little bit easier to hold if I can have it closer to my face. So I'm squeezing them around those side wires now to secure them in place. So these 2 wires that are on this side, which are coming out over here, holding it in place at the front there. So I'm holding these wires flat so they don't move. I'm going to bend these 2 wires around and send them around that side. Like I say, if you want to stop at any point and just finish off your wires, you can just curl them into little curls to finish them off, closing up your curls to make sure they don't snag on anything. Or you can just wrap them around the side wires. So I've just pulled those tight around there, and then I'll take the bottom one and pull it around to the front. And I'm just going to squeeze those wires around there so they're all secure. And I'm going to chop that back one off. I've pulled it out a little bit so I can cut it at the back so it doesn't snag on anything. And then I shall squeeze it back too. And then this one will just finish off with a curl. So that's what I've got so far. So like I keep saying, you can stop at any time. So this top wire now, I'm going to finish that off. I'm going to hold the weave against the piece and I'm going to bend that wire around to the back. And I'm going to tell you to use shorter wires because I am cutting off quite a bit of length here. But I'm going to chop that off and wrap it around the back where those other wires are. That'll hold the weave in place against the heart there at the top. So holding the weave down in place, I'm just going to bend that wire around the side, squeeze it in place. Now I'm going to take this top wire and holding the front in place, I'm going to do the same around the side, over the back, and cut it off and wrap it around there. So now I'm going to weave over these last 2 wires. And I'm just going to do the weave that we did earlier, 3 times around both wires. So now I'm going to weave across these 2 wires. I'm going to do the weave that we did earlier, and I'm going to do it upside down if you like. So we'll have 3 wraps around both wires, come up between, and then 3 wraps around that top wire. And we'll repeat that a few more times. So I've kept repeating that weave. You must keep pushing it together as you go. And all we need to do is just bend this around so that it meets the bottom. So the amount of repeats you'll need just depends on how far you got to go to reach that weave at the bottom. So I'm going to do another repeat just to get to the bottom there. So you want your weave to reach the bottom of that woven loop at the bottom there, and when you've reached it, cut off your weaving wire. Flatten any sharp ends, and we're just going to secure this around the weave at the bottom. So hold it in place how you want it to sit firmly, and take both these wires around the loop. Being careful not to misshape your little loop at the bottom. And then we're going to take both wires. I'm going to cut one off because it's hard to bend two wires when one's longer than the other. Then we're going to take these wires through the loop. So holding this weave in place so it doesn't move, I'm using my pliers to put it through because they're a bit short to handle. It may be easier to do one wire at a time, but pull them all the way through the loop. So I've wriggled those wires through, and then I'm going to pull this bottom wire over, and that other wire I'm going to cut at the back. So that's finished at the back. I'm going to squeeze that wire flat. So that's finished off nice at the back. And then that front wire, I'm going to curl around. So I was going to say shorten the wires, I won't now because this one was quite small. Just curling it around into a little curl at the bottom. So just to be awkward and because I'm too fussy, I've undone it and curled it the other way. You just want to finish it off. You don't even have to put a curl on if you don't want to. Just wrap it around the bottom weave, and then we're going to curl this wire. So we're going to cut that one and curl that one around. So now we just need to add my jump ring, and I think I'm going to put it round the weave and the loop at the top there. So there we have it, finished, and I'm really pleased how that one ended up. As I said, if you are a beginner and you want to do something different, you can, as long as you do the top weave, so you've got something to attach your jump ring to. You can then finish off the wires however you like. All these extra weaves, I think, just add to the shape, so if you don't want to add them, you don't have to. All my jewellery that I make is for sale in my shop if anyone is interested in having a look or buying that special Valentine's gift. There's a few hearts over there if you want to have a little look. The website is down there in the corner. So there we have it, finished. Thanks for following me again with another little heart pendant for Valentine's Day. And thanks for watching, and thanks for subscribing if you have, and please do, and that helps support me on my channel. And I think that's everything. See you in the next one. Bye.